Everyone,
Hey,
welcome to our monthly demo series. My name is Jonathan Gill. I'm going to be your host of today. I'm the head of business development and will be your guide and inside look at Aisera. Joining me today is Rem. He's going to be your main resource for all things platform capabilities. And then Joanna, of course, was going to support with engagement. To kind of set the stage for this webinar, we're going to be covering a high level of Aisera and then four subconcepts. We're going to jump into different agent models, where they live, their functionality. We'll then we'll begin with an IT demo. And then if we have time, we can rotate towards HR and CX. We'll cover security, role access, contextual references. And then we'll get into speak to complex cross-domain workflows. And then lastly, we'll end with a Q&A. As we work through this session, please feel free to drop notes within the chat. We want to make this as conversation as possible. Joanna will be monitoring these to help facilitate a lot of questions, and we're really, really excited to have everyone here. So with that being said, Rem, let's get started.
thanks, John. I'm going to start with just at a high level, an overview of what Aisera looks like from a platform perspective, because this is going to resonate when you guys go through the demo and understand how the thing works. At a high level, you can think of Aisera as an orchestration platform. So we're able to bring agentic use cases across a myriad of different, what we call domains. So domains can be, it can be IT is a domain, HR is a domain, finance is a domain, customer service could be a domain. What we've done is we've built a platform that's capable of providing agentic access to a variety of different types of tasks or knowledge across these domains. And John mentioned later on that we can also go cross domains. So we can actually go across a multiple set of domains for a particular use case. The whole thing starts here with the foundational models that we have. And this is key because Aisera has built in what we call small language models. So these are models that are set up to deal with knowledge or tasks that are specific to a particular domain, because large models don't perform so well when you are actually looking at something very specific like HR, because they're more general. They're your chat GPTs of the world can, tell you how to write something in, iambic pentameter in Shakespearean language in English, and it does really great. But if you ask it, what's my HR policy, probably not so great. So we've actually condensed all those down into these smaller models. And then above that, we've built security. And the reason we do that is because while, general purpose models like ChatGPT can answer general questions, when it comes to workplaces and enterprises, security is paramount. So we have to make sure that the knowledge we're serving and the tasks that we're doing on behalf of a user falls into the level of permissions that they have for that particular task or knowledge. So we do that in place. And on top of that, we have the Agentic platform, which I'm going to show you today. And then we'll talk about all the other things that go into how Aisera works. One key thing to keep in mind, and I want you guys to keep this in mind when I'm doing the demos, is that up here you'll see this thing called the Aisera Universal Bot. We call them agents. Some people call them bot. What it is that it's a single place for our users to go, regardless of what tasks they want to do. So, for example, they may be currently you may have, for example, a chatbot in ServiceNow for dealing with IT issues, and you may have another chatbot in Workday for dealing with HR issues, and maybe something else in Oracle. Users get confused on where to go, and so a lot of times they may go into the wrong bot and ask a question, and they get a poor customer or service experience simply because that bot wasn't designed to answer that question. So we solve that problem by creating what we call a universal bot. And what the universal bot does is understand the question that's being asked and then route that service request to the specific bot that is able to handle it. So the users don't have to worry about which bot do I go to. You actually go to one agent, and then from there, that agent will then route the request to these sub-agents that are more specific to the task or the domain that it's dealing with. So one last slide. This is how it works, is that we have users on the other side, and then the users interact with the Aisera Universal Agent. And then from there, we have a variety of different conversations or tasks that we can do that's based on whatever people want to try and work with. So if, for example, you're an IT person and you're only concerned with IT, we can route that to all the different types of apps that are related to IT or platforms that are related to IT. The type of questions we get asked in IT may be different than the type of questions we get asked in HR. So we're able to go across all of these things. And one key thing to keep in mind is that we're omnichannel. So if that word is foreign to you, what that really means is that we can service the user across whatever platform or tool that they use on a daily basis. So if all your users are usually in Teams and that's how they work, we can put the Aisera agent in Teams, and I'll show you that today. Or if they're in Slack, they can go work in Slack. We could even actually interact with them over email or text, or we could actually embed the agent inside a portal, like an HR portal or your company portal. It doesn't matter where the user is, we will go to the user in the tool that they're using. So I just want to give this high level overview of what this thing looks like before we get into the demo. So let me stop this and let's get into the demo. So the first thing we're going to deal with, since this is, we have an IT audience, is the domain of dealing with IT specific knowledge or tasks. And a lot of our customers get this as well, which is, I'm a new employee, I've come in, I need to get access to Salesforce. I don't exactly know how to do it. Typically what this would happen is that I would open up a ticket with IT help desk to say, hey, I need access to Salesforce. So what we're going to do here is have the agent understand that the person is requesting access. So this is different from knowledge serving, whereas we've actually ingested some content, we're actually reading through it using the power of a large language model to understand what the question is and serve up some knowledge that actually talks about it. In this particular case, we're also able to hook into a business process that's involved in providing access. So the agent is able to understand that there's a business and I just can't simply give Rem access to Salesforce. I need to get approval from his manager. So in order to kick this process off, the first thing it's going to do is ask my manager for approval. So I'm going to say, yeah, I want access to Salesforce. And now that request has been sent to my manager. And what I have to do is now on my end of the world, it's the process has paused. And so now I have to go back onto my manager's world. So I'm going to go into Rod, who's my manager, and I'm going to go look into his Teams. And you'll notice that in Teams, he's getting a request that the agent has sent to him. We're all living in Teams, so we don't have to ever leave the environment that we're usually used to and say, hey, Rem is asking for approval to get access to Salesforce. Do you approve or reject? If I reject, it'll go back and tell me that I'm not able to do this. But just to continue this workflow, I'm going to say approve this request. And then from then on, what's going to happen is the flow is going to go back, or the workflow is going to go back to me and then continue the process. So if I go back to my Teams, you'll notice, hey, look, your request to Salesforce is approved. Click here in Okta to view the application. So if I go into my Okta view, we were using underneath the covers. What's happened is that I've actually gone in and that's not me. This is me. Let's go here. So right now, this is my Okta application panel, and I don't have anything that related to Salesforce because the request just came through. But if I refresh it now, I will see that Salesforce has been added to my available application. So underneath the covers, what's happened is that it's taken the request, the agent has received the request, understood that there is a business process involved in order for me to fulfill that request, send that approval request to my manager. My manager approved it. At that point, the workflow took over, used the integration with Okta to provision Salesforce for me. And on top of that, it also created a request in ServiceNow so that we can follow this along. So all those extra steps have been done automatically. And so what this has done is we've actually gone through, just like knowledge serving, if it all worked earlier, is that typically this would have ended up being a service request. But by utilizing Aisera's agent, the AI was able to handle this type of request. There's a lot of these around. And handling these simple requests not only prevents agents from focusing on complex tasks because they get inundated with this stuff, but it also increases mean time to resolution, which is pretty important for a lot of IT organizations because they want to make sure that the SLAs that they provide to their end users are on time, that they're solving those problems on a timely manner. But at the same time, it's also driving up adoption for these type of tools like an AI agent, because the last thing you want to do is have an agent that works maybe some of the times, but it doesn't fulfill the task all the way through. For example, it'll say, oh yeah, you know what? I created this ticket for you, and now we have to wait for somebody else to do it. Instead, we're going to use the automation and the workflow underneath the covers, the agentic workflow underneath the covers to follow through. So if I actually open this up in my browser, I'll see that that request was created in ServiceNow, and I can actually follow the audit trail in terms of what happened, who worked on it. Obviously, the Aisera app worked on it, and it got approved, and we can actually see that audit trail. So any questions about... I'm sorry,
Yes,
John?
absolutely. Yep, we had a good question. What if Teams is not where everyone resides or lives? Can you do all this
Yeah.
inside other platforms, Zoom, for example, or some sort of standalone interface of your own?
Yes. So I will show you a good example of that is here's that same agent that's in its own. We can take that agent and we can actually put it into a standalone web page. It can be embedded, as I said earlier, if people don't live in Teams, let's say they live in Slack or they don't even use Slack. They just go through with email. All of that can be done exactly the same way. So it doesn't matter where they live. When we say we're omni-channel, that means truly that we can live wherever the users are. We're not going to force them to adopt a new tool or a new type of way of doing things. Whatever they're used to, we want to make sure the adoption comes in, because if anybody's going to spend money on an AI agent, we want to make sure that it's adopted. So I'll show you later on, I'll show you an example of where that agent is embedded inside a portal as opposed to something like Teams or Slack. And now I want to show you something that's fairly complex, which is a lot of problems that a lot of times people have, which is the ability for me to like deal with a computer running slow. So I'm logged into remoted into this machine that I'm using for my demo, and I've got this browser open, and if I look at my task manager, I'll notice that Firefox is consuming a lot of memory. So this is this is something that we see. Now, users are not going to bring up Task Manager and look at it, and say, oh, Firefox is eating up a lot of memory. What they'll do is they'll actually create a ticket to say, my computer's running slow. Can you help me with it? And that gets into a ticket. And so what I'm going to show you is essentially a level of automation that we can do that takes it a step further. This is not just simply hooking up into things like Okta or Salesforce and doing things there, but this is like solving a problem on a remote computer where a lot of times people have trouble doing. So typically what would happen is, generally, we've all been through this, is that you'll open up a ticket with a service desk to say, my computer's running slow. Someone will either, remote in and try to look at what's happening, or they may send you things to try. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to have the Aisera agentic agent take care of that problem from an automation perspective. So I'm going to send, this request in Teams. It could be Slack, it could be any of the other channels we're talking about. And what Aisera is going to now do is look at this and take this request and say, okay, let me start working on it. One of the things it did here is that it looked at our device management platform and decided that I have a really old computer. So rather than fixing it, I'm available, an upgrade is available for me to get a newer computer, because it's been 2 years since I've had this and I have an older computer. Would you, it's giving me the option to say, rather than fixing this problem, would you like to upgrade your computer? Which right now, that's not a great option. I really want this thing to work. So I will say, no, I want you to troubleshoot this device. And now what's going to happen is, at this point, the agent is now going to use the orchestration and the integration we have with something like an Intune or Nextthing, which has a client running on this machine, and it's getting diagnostics from that client. So all this information that is coming in from here, coming through that API that we used for Intune or Nextthing, and did some diagnostics, and then use that information to summarize an answer using using our large language model to say, okay, I have all this information. You can see that the CPU usage is really high, memory usage almost full, and then gives me some information. This is the information it got from that endpoint to say, there's 3 applications that are consuming a lot of memory. It's running slow because of high CPU and memory usage. And it gives me some next steps to do. Like, this is what typically a human agent would do, is say, okay, these are the things that are happening. We're actually going to go back and forth with that user to say, close high memory options, high memory consuming applications is one. You can restart, do some system cleanup. It allows the user to interact with the agent to figure out what they want to do. I'm going to choose to close the high memory consuming apps. So what it's going to now do is that information it gathered earlier. You notice it said there was 3 apps that it looked like you want to that was consuming a lot of memory. Which one is it? I'm going to pick Firefox. And what's going to now do is it's going to go through the endpoint tool that we have. In this case, it'll be Intune, reach into that remotely reach into the computer, and it close the Firefox browser for me. And now, and gets feedback to say, did that work or didn't work? If I'd have said, no, it didn't work, we'll continue to do the more troubleshooting steps. Maybe it wasn't Firefox. Maybe it was something else. Maybe my disk is full or whatever else. But the reason we ask this is 2 ways. The first thing is that, one, we get some feedback. And if you ever get into a demo with us, there's a much more deeper dive into the Aisera platform where we have a bunch of analytics. And what we want to do is talk about, in the analytics, not only see what worked, but also what didn't work. Because a lot of times, as an engineer, I don't really care about like all the stuff that worked. We expect that stuff to work, but I really am interested in stuff that didn't work in terms of like, what are we missing in our agentic workflows, or the way we detect issues, or the way we interact with the user? What are those things that are not working? And if that's not working, let's plug those holes in so that we can get a higher resolution rate. If maybe at a lot of our customers, but as soon as they implement us, very quickly we'll get around 70% on average resolution rates versus what they were having before. And typically a lot of them are in the 90%. And we want to get closer to the 100% by plugging all those holes. And that's why these survey type things are really important, because we need to understand what's happening. And so we'll get these surveys. We'll constantly ask, if you ever see demos from us, you'll see there's this like thumbs up or yep, that worked. The no, it still didn't work is more of a notification to the workflow or the automation to say, it didn't work, let's try other steps. Or the other option, and all of this is very configurable. So none of this stuff is like built in stone. You can actually go and configure any of these things, the way these agents behave, the decisions that they make, the options that they provide to a user can be completely customizable. We've built all those things in. So from a deployment perspective, you can come in and within 3 to 6 weeks have most of your like low-hanging fruit problems already solved, because we've already seen that 100 times or 1,000,000 times. And we've built all the agentic workflows and all the interactions that you would typically have with password resets and Wi-Fi and computer running slow. All of that's there. All you have to do is customize to say, how is that interaction going to be? Because your user base is going to be different than our user base. So the language that you guys use, or the way they like to interact, they may not like these buttons. They may like to type. It needs to be more conversational. That's an extra configuration step that goes into it. The other thing they can do is, if it's still not working, is we can then either kick it off to a live agent. So a live agent comes in and starts working with the problem, or we can create a ticket, as you saw when I was doing that software provisioning, is that we can create a ticket in your ITSM platform, and then somebody else will take it from there. So here I'm just going to say, yep, that worked, I'm good. And that ends this particular thing. And then there's some other things in here. You'll see that, giving you extra notices that, hey, you haven't started it. For security and compliance reason, make sure you start it, that sort of stuff. So there's educational stuff in there as well. I'm going to pause here. Any questions while I was showing this, John?
No, we actually we didn't have any this time around. I'd ask a question to the audience, please. Outside of IT, is there anyone here that resides within a customer success role, or anyone that resides in an HR role? Feel free to drop it in there, and we can go ahead and then pivot into the last piece of our demo. Customer success it is.
Okay, so this guy's still going. It's still knowledge serving, unlike my Teams guy. So I'm going to give this person this agent a prop, and the Teams guy, I'm going to complain about him later. So now that we've seen some IT type stuff, let's look at an HR type scenario. So in this case, I'm actually in Slack instead of Teams, just to show you the omnichannel way of we working with things. And this particular example is going to be slightly different. So you saw knowledge serving, and you saw AI automation or workflow where it does provisioning software or troubleshooting a computer, blah blah blah. You notice when I was, remember when I was last time I was in Teams and I was asking for stuff through to provision Salesforce for me. Because we're omni-channel, we're able to broadcast that out. So if some of your users are in Slack, great. If some of your users are in Teams, great. You're going to see the same type of information come in. And this is the power of that universal bot, is the fact that it can not only understand multiple types of domain problems, HR, IT, finance, whatever, but you can also broadcast that out to multiple channels. So if a user is also using Teams and Slack like I am, I get that information in both places. So, now that we have the same agent called Universal Copilot, and what I want to do is, we talked about it earlier. You want that one universal agent so people don't have to figure out which agent to go to. We've already solved that problem. But now in this example, I'm going to show you how Aisera can combine both like knowledge serving that you saw earlier, but also an agentic workflow within the same request. So rather than saying, give me some information and then I want to react to it, I'm going to do both of it at the same time. So a good example is I'm going to say, hey, I want to apply for time off. Now, there's going to be some interaction going on between Slack and the Aisera agent. I didn't say what type of time off. Obviously, in our company, we have different types of time off. You have vacation, sick, doctor's appointment, bereavement leave, that sort of stuff. This is the agent's way of disambiguating the request, because what we don't want to do is assume that the user meant something and then take them down a particular path of the agent doing something. But instead, what we want to do is we want to disambiguate. Since I didn't tell them what type of time off I'm taking off, I really meant vacation. So I'm going to say vacation. And this is, again, when we talked about the customization of how the agents work, some of it can be button driven, like you saw earlier when we were dealing with that computer running slow. Some of it can be conversational. Some of it can be both. You can mix the conversation part and also the button part. So now it's asking me, when would I like to take time off? There's some holidays coming in, for 4th of July. So I'm going to say July 3rd. This is more of a conversational one versus a form-driven one. And then it's going to say how many days do I want to take off. I'm going to say 1 day, because really what I want to do is I want to take advantage of the 3-day weekend and just go from the 3rd to the end of the weekend. And so our company uses in this particular case, our company uses Bamboo for managing time off. So what has happened is that before it creates my time off request, it's actually used the built-in integration with Bamboo to check my vacation balance and make sure I had enough days to take the time off. And while it's getting that, the agent's also using its integration into SharePoint to retrieve and summarize some information about the HR policy. So this is where that knowledge serving and the agentic workflow is coming all at once. It was smart enough to say, okay, I'm going to check your balance. It says you have 9 days, so you're good there. And then it calculated that I'm going to take 1 day off. And it's also understood that it was not going to double book me for time off on a Friday, because the 4th falls on a Friday. It understood that based on the information that we pulled from Bamboo, not only about my days off, but also the company holidays, it was able to understand that, yeah, there's a company holiday on the 4th. I don't need to charge you for the 4th as well. And your total requested day is only 1 day off. And now back to that same problem we had before, which is, or not problem, but the same process we had before, which is the agent understands that there's a business process in place that requires my manager to approve my time off before it can actually happen. So, it's asking me would I would like to submit this to my manager. I'm going to say yes. And now, again, just like before, it's going to pause and I'm going to wait till my manager, Rod, does something. So if we go into Rod's email, there'll be a request waiting in Rod's email for my time off approval. So I will see here, it says, hey, Ram is trying to take time off. Do you approve or deny? So this, again, is another channel. So rather than him getting a message in Teams, which he also got, also in Slack, he can also get a message or a notification in email. And we have the workflow automation in place to say, regardless of what channel Rod received the notification on, let's go ahead and kick off that process. So Rod's going to approve this request. And while it's approving, what's happening underneath the covers is that we're going to integrate into Workday. We're going to set my time off in place. We're going to create the audit trail that says Rob approve my vacation request. And I also get a notification saying, hey, you're done. Your vacation's been approved and you're good to go. So I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to go into Bamboo to set this up. I didn't have to wait for Rod to do something. Continue to check in Bamboo whether the approvals have happened. I'm just going to be able to have the agent do all this for me. And then at the same time, also being served up knowledge about company holidays and things like that. So pausing here. Any questions, John, while I was showing this?
Didn't have any questions, but I do have a favor to ask, Rem. Is there any chance that we can
Yeah.
pivot and be able to show a CS use case externally facing?
Yes. The CS use cases about, I was going to show, we can certainly show that, but I wanted to show cross-domain use case as
Great.
well. What would you rather do?
Let's pivot just for the for Shreddy. It looks like he asked us a single question about CS in his role.
Okay.
Always
Yep.
come back to the cross-domain piece. In the meantime, while Rem is pulling this up, are there any other questions that are resolved with IT or HR? I want to make sure we get those answered before we jump into the other system.
Our CX demo is set up for a retail sort of organization. So I can show you that one fairly quickly. So in this particular case, this is, again, it's very retail driven, but you can do the same thing here as well, which is, we have this company, they're into, meetings, or meeting software, things like that. They also have a lot of other types of things that they sell. If I come in here, this is an embedded agent. This is very similar to what you saw in terms of the stuff running in Slack or the stuff running in Teams or an agent by itself on our own page. Well, we have the same experience in terms of like what they can do. So you can say things like, hey, I have issues with my thermostat. And you'll notice there's some things in here like, view my cases. So we're able to pull, information from the ticketing system, from billing systems. You can do order stuff, we can do comparison analysis. So a lot of the things that you do from a customer service perspective is here. So, and again, all of this is completely customizable. This particular demo, as I mentioned, is about, you'll notice that there's some stuff that we're already like pushing out in the bot or the agent. So in terms of like promotions and things like that, but all the other things you can see, like, view my open tickets, view my order status, all of that is here. This is knowledge serving. I was very generic in my request to say, I have issues with my thermostat. We've actually gone back into their order history, looked at what types of thermostats they have, and understood that, now we can actually serve up the right relevant type of knowledge in terms of, I don't want to give this person an answer for a thermostat they don't know. And so we understand that we can actually use that as a contextual relevance in terms of pulling that thing back and then giving them options to troubleshoot. So, I'll do one of these. It's like, so this is just some knowledge serving stuff in terms of, hey, it's not working. These are all the things you can do. Does this help or not? You'll see this thumbs up and thumbs down. This goes back to the analytics we were talking about earlier. And I can say I'm good. I can also do things like comparison analysis, like, the idea here is that regardless of what you do, we can customize these agents to do whatever you want. It's the same. It's the same process. Okay, didn't understand my question there. It's the same process in regards of how the Aisera agent works. It all goes back down to we integrate to where your knowledge sits, and we also integrate to all the different systems of record that do all the different things like billing and ticketing and things like that. And then how you make the agent behave is entirely customizable up to you. But underneath the surface, it's all exactly the same. Whether we're working on a ticket issue, whether we're working on an HR issue, whether we're working on a CX issue, it's the same thing. The process underneath that, when you saw that slide I showed up earlier with the sandwiches layers and then all the different agents, that's exactly the same. Underneath the process, underneath the covers, the exact same process. So for example, I want to say, like, how do I initiate a refund? A lot of things that you normally see from a customer service perspective, things they don't know. So it gives them a step-by-step on all the things they want to do. What do we need? What do we need to do? What do we don't need to do? I can also look at my order status, open orders. So we're actually going in and looking at the order management system, understanding what items that they have ordered, the status on where they are, the IDs, the quantity, amounts, that sort of stuff. If I want to say like, okay, what's happening with this Google Nest Mini? What do you want? So we're actually interviewing the user to say exactly what they want to do. Change delivery date. And now I'm getting a form-driven thing where they can pick what dates they wanted it to deliver and which address and what time. So was that enough of a illustration on what we can do from a customer service perspective?
Rem, thank you so much. Any other questions?
One more here. What about text bots?
Text bots. Yeah. So text bots, the same thing. So we have an SMS integration. So, in fact, I was actually working on a custom demo for one of our prospects that I'm going to show tomorrow, where the interaction between the user and the agent is over SMS. So it's the same thing. SMS is one of our channels, just like Slack and Teams and, embedded agents within portals. It's the same thing. We would receive the text. The text would obviously get processed simply like I would if I was typing into a bot, and then the response goes out over text versus a bot, or it can be also multi-channel, so you can actually send it to both. So, for example, you may get a text, a customer or an employee may send a text. That text can come into Teams or Slack or wherever else. You can answer from there, and it'll go back as text to the person that sent it. So it can be mixed and matched.
I'm going to close this out, if you don't mind. I'm Jonathan Gill. We thank you guys for joining us today. If you guys have any questions, please come to me and we will receive a copy of this recording. Joanna and Rem, thank you guys for joining. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.